Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Let's be real. Whether you're loving your current job or scouting for a new one, chances are you're leaving money on the table. Please welcome Keri-Lynne Shaw to the show. A former chief people officer, she has interviewed and negotiated with thousands of potential candidates over her career and seen the awesome, the not so great, and the cringeworthy. You know, what's really surprising, the largest percentage of folks say yes to a new job without even trying to work out a deal. There's a secret stash of cash left untouched by so many, including you. Consider her your backstage pass to all HR insights and your salary secret weapon. Today, she's a fractional chief people officer and founder of her company, The Salary Bump, partnering and advising companies on topics like strategic hiring, growth impact, and tailoring teams for ultimate success. Keri-Lynne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So I always start the show the same way, and I want to give people some background on you. Will you share your story, please?
Sure. So you gave the background on my last job, which was chief people officer. It's a job that I never thought I would have. It's a job I never knew existed. I didn't know how to spell HR a decade ago when I fell into it by accident. I actually started out in sales and marketing. I sold cars to pay for college and still am a total car nerd. I also ride a Harley, and sales and marketing was my way to connect with people. And I felt somehow that I was, it's weird to say, but changing people's lives. So whatever the product was, I loved connecting with people. It was just always so exciting to see them walk out with a designer handbag that made them really happy, a new car, whatever it was always just really, the people side of it was really what was important to me. So when I fell into HR, it was like everything just sort of came together. And I couldn't imagine myself being in a different role after having now sat in a bunch of different seats. I've lived and worked in a couple of different countries, 3 actually. And yeah, it's been a really beautiful adventure. And now launching the Salary Bump, it's sort of everything over the last 3 decades has come together. And I wanted to give people a peek behind the HR curtain. And sadly, Lyndsay, and you said this in the bio, the amount of people that don't negotiate, it's so embarrassingly low. Yeah. And statistically is less than 50%, but it's worse in my world. Of the thousands of people I've met in my career, maybe 15% negotiate. And of course, that number is lower for women. Of course, that number is even lower for people of color. And yeah, it's always been my goal and my dream to touch people and impact the world. And this is my way of doing that and teaching people how to do it.
Oh, so, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but I first want to dig in on why is it that people are so reluctant to negotiate? Do they think they're not worthy? Do they think they're unqualified? Like, what are they afraid of?
Yeah, I think the knowing your worth piece is a really big part. I think a lot of people are uncertain of that. I think the biggest thing and what I experience with my clients and people is they're just afraid. They're afraid to ask. So they might have a negative association or an awkward association with money. Limiting beliefs over the years of things like filthy rich and money doesn't grow on trees, and, an ugly sense of greed around money. And so I think for a lot of people, me included, for most of my career, I always said, and I said this in interviews, I mean, it's shocking, but I would say, oh, money's not my priority. My priority is my growth and my learning. And I mean, I said this.
Do you think that's a woman's statement? Because I know I've said that too. Like, the work is more important to me than the money. And I said that a while ago, but still, like, do you think that's more said by women?
Yes. Yes. Men might think it, but they won't say it. So, yeah, so we're already walking into it, kind of holding ourselves back. And I think generally too, people are so excited about the opportunity. So if you get a job offer, you don't want to screw it up. And so there's fear around, if I negotiate, will they pull the offer from me? And the answer to that is an absolute zero. I have never pulled an offer unless somebody is behaving badly.
Sure.
It's not something that's going to happen, or not, or something you need to worry about. But I think there's just so much excitement and nervousness around it. So that's a big thing. And then the other thing is that people don't know how to ask.
Yeah.
And negotiating is also an uncomfortable, awkward thing for people, unless we work together, and I help teach you that there's a win-win. There's an absolute win-win side to it, that they want you want to work for them. You should be paid what you're worth,
Yeah.
and what the market is paying. It's so simple. Let's make this a win-win. You can even say that in the negotiation, and it changes the whole dynamic and just pulls everything down a little bit.
I love that. And I want to dig in on that a little more, but talk a little bit about when we first met, you shared a story about how you negotiated your first job, not your first job, but one of the first times you really negotiated a job, and you realized the difference and how that isn't the norm. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was years and years and years that I said those things, that it's not about the money, until I realized that I actually can have both. I can have the learning and growth, and I can have the money. And I always sort of believed that if I do really good work, the money would come. And to an extent it did. And it's been a phenomenal journey. But it was in the moment. So being in HR, obviously, I have access to everybody's salary. And so I started to realize how grossly underpaid I was compared to the men sitting on the board and the executive teams with me. And I thought, that's interesting. So is it my role that's not valued as a chief people officer? Is it me? My mistakes not coming in and negotiating properly, their mistakes by not benchmarking me properly with the others. And I started to get extremely frustrated because I knew my value. I knew that I was killing it. So did my CEO. And so I put together a really simple methodology, which is what I'm sharing with my salary bump community. And I went to him and I expressed how I was feeling. Obviously, I knew he was very happy with my performance. So that's an important thing. But getting a salary bump in your existing role is harder than it is, when you job jump. But I expressed how I was feeling. I expressed the facts. I tried to take the emotion out of it and really just focus on moving us forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got 3 sentences out, and he doubled my salary on the spot.
Nice.
And I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, I did not expect that. To be frank, I didn't even really go in with a number in my mind, but I at least wanted to be on par with my male colleagues. And him doubling my salary put me at a higher level even than CFO. And it was at that moment where I thought, I have to now take this to the world and change the world and their thoughts around this, because I know I left so much on the table, and so have you, and so has everyone who is listening to this podcast. And it's time we change that for everyone, but certainly closing the gender pay gap is something that's really important to me as well.
Well, I'm crazy passionate about leadership and modernizing leadership. And I want to flip it a little and talk about what are leaders doing to their employees when they are full of empty promises, full of, oh yeah, you're gonna get the promotion, we just have to wait and see how things go, or you're next in line for the next big raise, and it never materializes. I mean, talk about the psyche and what that does to the people, because you saw it from an HR perspective, and I imagine that contributes quite a bit to attrition, but I want to hear your perspective.
If they're even having those conversations, I think those conversations are happening fewer and far between. So I just encourage everyone to own it. And you are in charge of your career. Get behind the wheel. You map the way for what you want. And I think proactively having those conversations, I write a lot about it on LinkedIn, and did near the end of the year, around how to proactively have a conversation around your performance and to bring in the financial elements to it. Doing your homework on the market value of your role outside of your company, hugely important. You need to know that when you walk into a conversation with your boss. You will also need to ask your boss, where do I fall in the benchmark? around people at my level
Right.
inside the organization. Probably something else they haven't done. It's not a common conversation that managers come and say to HR, hey, can you give me the benchmark so that I can make sure my people are paid right?
Do you
No.
know, Keri-Lynne, that was one of the things I did every time I took on a new team. The first thing I did was go to HR. I said, I want to know where everyone is pay wise, because I always knew my women were underpaid. I always knew there were some people that had not received raises for years and years and years, and they were way, way low. And then I said, I want everyone re-leveled. And they did. And I had to fight for people, and they gave me the money that I wanted. And those were some of my favorite calls to make. But as a leader, what that does to your team to know you fought for them. Oh my God, I got so many loyal employees that would do anything for me because I fought for them.
Right, but you are an exceptional leader.
I know.
So the
Well,
amount of
not I know,
exceptional
but that's a
leaders,
different thing. Yeah.
it's so, so small. I also did the same thing every time I took over an HR role. I did an equity analysis inside the organization, and I looked to see where we had holes
Yep.
and that we were filling those holes.
Yep.
I also do consulting with companies around their compensation inside the organization. And it's so important that you actually have a compensation philosophy, which a lot of companies don't. So if we can assume that most people listening don't have a phenomenal leader like you, or don't work for an organization that has really evaluated their comp philosophy, then they have to get in the driver's seat. And so coaching them on understanding their worth, asking the right questions to their leaders and to their HR, and in a way that's very positive, right? So when we talk about my career growth, or I've just finished a phenomenal project and you just told me how great it was, that's a beautiful time to say, listen, I'm really excited to continue to grow here, growing in terms of my career, but also growing financially. Can we talk about what that looks like?
Yeah.
I'd love to know where I fall amongst other colleagues on my immediate team, what the ranges are. Start asking questions that you haven't asked before.
Yeah.
They're either going to, or they're going to hopefully come back with some answers. And if they don't, you ask yourself, is this really an organization that puts value on the things that I put value on?
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask, and it's okay to want both a phenomenal career with a phenomenal company and a paycheck or compensation to match.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I think it is really important to ask your current manager, what are the things that I need to do to increase my commission or increase my salary or whatever that is. Because whenever you can put those concrete things in place, it makes the second discussion much easier. You said it would happen if I did these things. I did those things. So can we review?
Sometimes, Lyndsay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sometimes what happens also is their hands can be tied in some cases, right? So if you're at the high end of the benchmark, if HR or leadership is saying, no, we can't budge on X, Y, or Z, or, you're in a very structured, tight environment, there are a million other levers that a leader can pull that don't even really cost the company a lot. Those are things like company cars, transportation, spot bonuses, when you're going to a new company, sign-on bonuses, healthcare,
retention
equity,
bonuses.
retention bonuses.
Attention, visionary leaders. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together.
And all of this should be done before the person threatens to leave, or before the person gives their resignation, and now you're scrambling to try to keep them, which is never a good idea, by the way. But there's other things. PTO. Guess what? That doesn't, unless you're an hourly, of course, it does cost the company money, but these are things that can be gold to people. You increase their PTO a few more weeks, like, oof, that could be really powerful for someone who values time off or flexibility, where to work.
That's such a good point, because in some cases, flexibility is as meaningful as more money. So
Yeah.
if you're an organization that says, we have to be in the office, 3 days a week or 4 days a week, and you say, you know what, we'll make it two. That might be just what that person needs to stay. And it is expensive to lose people. So, people don't quit. I think what I always say, and I hope the leaders listen, is they don't quit companies, they quit leaders. And if you are the leader that is full of empty promises, don't expect your people to stay. Get
Yeah.
creative. You've got, just like Keri-Lynne said, you've got lots of tools at your disposal. Retention bonuses are a big one. I saw those get thrown around a lot in corporate America.
Yeah.
And they're meaningful, but they also can be empty. So it's like here, take some money and shut up. So, you really want to know that there's material change along with that if that's the problem.
There's
Um,
also, elements like people want to grow. So if growth, and that is a very big driver for many,
right.
many people, how are you investing in my skills? Are you, is that something that you'd be willing to do? Pay for my MBA,
Yep.
pay for me to get an executive MBA, support anything else, General Assembly and AI
Management
and
training.
learning.
Yeah.
These are things that matter to people.
Yeah.
And I actually just got off a really interesting call with a gentleman named Steve Cadigan. He was LinkedIn's first CHRO, and he's now a keynote speaker and done some incredible work in this space. And he just threw out a statistic that is alarming and should be very alarming for leaders. And that is the average tenure in the US is less than 3 years. So people are not staying inside organizations for a lot of reasons. And if I tell you the statistic for people who job jump that make over 50% more than those that stay loyal
Yep.
from a salary perspective, there is something in it for people to keep moving on. So unless you're investing in skills, unless you're looking at the market data on these functions outside of your organization to see what the market's paying and not just look at your budget, which is it doesn't come from usually anywhere. You really have to start thinking about how you're retaining your talent. And it comes in so many different ways, and amazing leadership is one of them, but the financial elements and all the different flexibilities, like there is a list of things that leaders can look at that I think they don't think about.
That's such a good point, Keri-Lynne, because I really do believe that this whole concept of loyalty is really lost now. You don't find employees like me that was at a company for 23 years. It's really rare. And nobody, I think, in the current job market is planning on doing that either. So as leaders, we really need to be thinking about how are we keeping our people? How are we keeping them happy? How are we investing in them? Are we doing the right things to make them want to stay? Are we offering them the right opportunities to grow? And I think it's such a great critical thinking question for all the leaders listening. How are your teams motivated? Is it money? Is it recognition? Is it, do you need to share the spotlight? Do you need to delegate? What are the things that really get their motor running? Because you should be doing those things if you want to keep, especially your good people, because the good people are the ones that jump.
Absolutely.
Really good point.
Absolutely. I think what people also, it's something I wrote about today, underestimate from an interview perspective, like that values match and that connection to your company. You spend a lot of time working
Yeah.
and putting employees in the driver's seat. And it's a really big reason why I think what I've created is so important. You need to be in the driver's seat. And that also is interviewing your potential new company. Treat it like a date. You're asking questions, you're getting to know
Right.
each other. You're probably spending more time at work than you are on it, in a relationship at
That's right.
times. So get in the driver's seat, ask the right questions, ask the questions that matter to you, and see this more as a mutual partnership and a connection and
Yeah.
find a way to connect. It creates a whole different dynamic, and it makes the negotiation part so much more interesting and fun.
And you want to make sure that you're the right fit for the organization. I mean, you want to know the culture questions. You want to know, what's your management style? Can I talk to a few people on the team? If they say no, that's a red flag. You want to know that, yes, of course you can talk to people on my team. They love it here. I'd love for you to hear what they have to say. If they, I mean, that should really be a warning shot for you if you really get a no on that one. But those culture questions are so, so important. So talk a little bit about, what are the offers from the salary bump? What are you working on? What can people expect if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so two different ways you can work with me. One is an online accelerator program. It's self-guided. It's all really rich videos from me that give you all the ins and outs, all the secrets. There's worksheets. It's not a significant investment in time. You have access to it for a lifetime, and it's basically everything in one beautiful package. So the kinds of clients that work with me one-on-one are people who've just received a job offer and they need to turn around the negotiation very, very quickly, or they want to get a salary bump in their existing role or a promotion in their existing role.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's great. I think it's such a, not a unique service, but a service that is so helpful to people. And as we all know, we are leaving money on the table. So it's important to not do that. So I always ask every guest that I have, what inspires you?
There's so many things that inspire me, but I think impacting the world and helping people unlock their potential is what I believe is my purpose, and helping people find the confidence to live their best life. That is extremely inspiring, and why I do what I do. Of course, I'm inspired by so many incredible people in my network that continues to grow in the world, people who are making a difference, especially as it relates to gender, in empowering more women, putting more women in the C-suite, continuing to invest in women, is very inspiring to me and to the work that I do as well.
So this is going to be a related question, but what would you like your legacy to be?
That I made a difference in the world.
Well, you're already doing that. So congratulations.
Thank
Keri-Lynne,
you.
how can people find you?
I am the salary bump everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's the salary bump. You can find me Keri-Lynne Shaw on LinkedIn, where I do a lot of thought leadership and I give a lot of freebies on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, guys. Please check out Keri-Lynne, connect with her on LinkedIn. We became fast friends. I think you'll love what she has to say. And if you are a job seeker, or if you are in a current role and you need that salary bump, or you're a company that needs to figure out how to make this work, don't hesitate to reach out to her. And guys, if you like this episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. Thank you for listening. Keri-Lynne, you've been great. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. If you liked what you heard, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would be ever so grateful. I hope you found it useful. Have a wonderful day.